What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And we have ourselves a loaded show for you all, as we had a lot of upsets in volleyball. A lot of interesting results, such as number one Hawaii going down to Ball State of all teams. Yes, the Cardinals got the job done against Hawaii. How did the Rainbow Warriors do? And what happened to them? And how about the Lewis Flyers shutting me up and sweeping UCLA? Big statement win for the Flyers as they were able to post a big win on the road, mind you. And the Battle of the Bigs was anything but disappointing as UCLA, or UC Santa Barbara, Long Beach State, Ohio State, and Penn State were just absolutely amazing. Seeing them in person were just awesome. Hand me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve you all some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And what is happening, everybody? Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. I hope you all are having an amazing Monday evening, Monday afternoon, depending on where you are listening from. It was a great weekend for Set Point, regardless of what happened. And happy Monday to everybody, and welcome to episode 127 of Set Point. Can't believe I've been on for 127 episodes, but I seem to say that pretty much about every episode of Set Point. Regardless, without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. But first and foremost, we have a word from our sponsors. The first sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California _Warriors, and on Facebook by typing the word Southern California, then Warriors. The second sponsor for IE Sports Radio is Background Check International Businesses. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit has founded and managed Background Check International Businesses since 1994, and he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier, just because background checks are always important when it comes to new hire-ons, just so there's nothing shady going on with that said hire-on. This business is used for professional background checks and not for the use of any crime such as identity theft or other illegal activity. They do not have Twitter or Instagram, but they do have the Book of Faces, aka Facebook, as you can check them out on Facebook by typing in the words Background Check International then BCI. And then IE Sports Radio is on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then Sports, then Radio. IE Sports Radio also has a website where you can go on there and check out all of our profiles and our shows. And when you go on there, there's a Patreon link with 5 different tiers, with the first one starting out at $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout-out from all 29 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on The Defining Moment in a segment with the one and only Larry B. And by the way, the defining moment is the flagship show, or the show that has pretty much put iSports Radio on the map when it comes to talking about all things sports. Because for the last 7.5 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans, for the fans. And with your help, iSports Radio is ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you all for continuing to make iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And the January Fan of the Month for this calendar year is none other than Jim, the Steelers fan. His Twitter is @Steel436442688go. He's not only a Steelers fan, but I actually just found this out last week. He's actually a Pitt fan, and he's a big Pitt volleyball fan because he admires all that what Dan Fisher has done, and he admires the work that he's put in to the Panthers program in women's volleyball. So good job for Steeler Jim for being a fan of Pitt women's volleyball. And also got to give a shout to Marcus Losgrid and Bay Area Raised Apparel for being our Patreon supporters for iSports Radio. So definitely got to give them their props. And that is pretty much that for the sponsors and the fan of the month. Let's get on into some volleyball action. Now, we had a lot of volleyball noteworthy matches for this weekend. It started on Friday, and it didn't even start with the Battle of the Bigs. This actually was a sneaky good matchup that I actually forgot to make note of this past weekend. I kind of forgot that this matchup happened. I'm guilty of this, as this matchup was between number 12 UC San Diego versus NJIT. Now, NJIT is an underrated team in my opinion. I think they're not as well known because of Penn State having the spotlight when it comes to the EIVA and them returning a majority of their players. I think NJIT, I've been singing praises about them. They have a good roster. Their coach is good. I think NJIT is promising when it comes to EIVA play. But for this match against UC San Diego, they start off a little sluggish as they drop the first set against UC San Diego 25-22. This was actually played in Newark, New Jersey at the NJIT's Wellness and Event Center. The UC San Diego kind of got the jump on NJIT. I believe there was 9 ties in that first set, which kind of set the tone for that match. And then the second set, UC San Diego just took the second set 25-17. They proved why they were a top 15 team, and it looked as if they were going to break out the brooms. But NJIT turned the tables on the Tritons, and they took the third set in dominating fashion, 25-16. Now, fourth set was very, very, very dramatic, as there were a whopping 15 ties and 6 lead changes. So it just went to show you that NJIT and UC San Diego were basically all in for that fourth set. And jumping to the latter part of set number 4, UC San Diego actually had 3 match points. They had match points at 26-25, 27-26, and 29-28. But unfortunately for them, they could not convert, as despite needing 4 set points, NJIT took the fourth set 31-29, as the match was even at 2 sets apiece. So for the fifth set, it actually did not feature any ties or lead changes, as NJIT rode the momentum from set 4 to win set 5, 15-10, to complete the upset over UC San Diego, which was very impressive. And I think this just goes to show that NJIT doesn't get the same respect as some of these other top-tier teams. I mean, obviously there's only 15 teams to pick from in the top 15. However, I think if there was an expanded, top 25, NJIT would definitely make the top 25, if not maybe the top 20. So for NJIT, they were led by Jens Feldthus, who had 18 kills. He only had 3 hitting errors, 34 swings for a hitting percentage of .441. Impressive numbers right there. Alessandro Negri had 15 kills, while Julian Meisner added 14 kills. In terms of digs, Meisner also led that team in digs as he had 13 digs for the Highlanders. And as a team, NJIT hit 291 while also totaling 10.5 blocks as a team. So NJIT really brought it. The 291 hitting stat is also impressive, and I think it just goes to show that NJIT is a good program and they deserve some respect. And I think this win kind of puts them on the map. For UC San Diego, they were led by Kyle McCauley, who had 27 kills. He had a hitting percentage of .393 as he took 56 swings and he had 5 hitting errors. Wyatt Harrison chipped in 13 kills and had a hitting percentage of .333. That was pretty much it for double-digit kill leaders, as their next kill leader was Logan Clark, who had 8 kills. As a team, UC San Diego hit 274, which is actually not bad, but for them, some of their other stats kind of don't do them any justice, as UC San Diego also had more hitting errors than NJIT, having 19 compared to the Highlanders' 12. And then UC San Diego also only had 4 aces on the night. And then the blocks were kind of the blaring stat that stood out to me in a negative way, as UC San Diego only had 6 blocks as a team, which that's not going to get the job done against an NJIT team on the road. So for UC San Diego, they still have a little bit to learn, but I will say this about the Tritons. They did bounce back in a great and dramatic way, as Saturday they beat Princeton in 5 sets. That match was also on the road for UC San Diego, so to salvage a split when it comes to their road trip is very impressive. I'll also be talking about the EIVA in a little bit in the second half of the show. You'll be hearing something about the EIVA. You'll see. So, great matchup right there. Impressive win for the Highlanders. They did receive some votes in the recent top 15, but did they make the top 15? We'll see. Continuing on from Friday's upsets, we had UC Santa Barbara upsetting number 4 Penn State in straight sets. Keep in mind, Santa Barbara was not ranked, considering they started off 1-3, and they had that impressive upset win over Pepperdine from a couple weeks ago. And then this one really caught me by surprise. I did not think Penn State was going to lose this one, but apparently they were in a bit of a lull, or maybe UC Santa Barbara is just better than what their first 4 matches indicated, as the Gauchos swept the Nittany Lions 25-13, 25-21, 25-21. The first set was just a dominant set, while the second and third set were a bit closer. The third set was probably the closest. It had 14 ties and 5 lead changes, but the Gauchos were able to take down the Nittany Lions. A very impressive win, and that really caught the attention of not only coaches, but volleyball fans and volleyball personnel all alike. The Gauchos were led by Ryan Wilcox, who had 12 kills, while Shah Hoshin and Donovan Todorov each had 7 kills. As a team, UC Santa Barbara hit a blistering 471, and they only had 6 hitting errors on the night. That is impressive, considering it's tough to really have like a low amount of hitting errors, especially when you're facing some tall dudes all across the net. And something that UC Santa Barbara did really well in was that they held Penn State to without a service ace, which is darn right impressive. They also chipped in 4 of their own, as the Gauchos did miss 15 serves, but they made up for it in other categories such as digs. They had 26 digs compared to Penn State's 22. And then the Gauchos also had 6 team blocks compared to Penn State's 4. As for Penn State, they were led by Cal Fisher, who had 15 kills. As a team, Penn State hit 247, as Fisher and Wilcox were the only double-digit kill leaders for their respective teams. The next kill leader for Penn State was Brett Wildman, who had 8 kills. But it was just not Penn State's night. Fisher had a good night. He had a hitting percentage of .367, but it just was not, the big hit was not there for the Nittany Lions, as their next kill leader after Wildman was Toby Ezeonu, who had 3 kills. So it was just a rough night for Penn State, and you can't win a game with just 2 pin hitters. You cannot win a match on the road in another state with just 2 players leading the way. It just doesn't work like that. Look at what happened with Lewis. Speaking of Lewis, they actually lost their game to Pepperdine as they unfortunately just had no answer for the Waves. The Waves came crashing down on the Flyers as they swept Lewis on the road on Friday. But on Saturday, this was another surprising match. Lewis, the number 7 Lewis, upset number 2 UCLA in straight sets on the road. Now, I needed to actually look at the box score just because I was a little confused to see how Lewis swept this one. Considering last week I basically talked about how Lewis does so great in their conference, but everywhere else they don't do as great. As Lewis does have a good team. They have some potent hitters, but the problem is that they just bank on one hitter throughout most of the night. That was not the case in this match. Their kill leader was Jason Gibbs, not Tyler Mitchum. Gibbs had 10 kills, while Kevin Calling and Cole Brillhart each had 8 kills. Mitchum chipped in 7 kills, and Michael Sack had 6 kills. That is the Lewis we need to expect to see, because if Lewis has multiple players contributing, they're a tough team to stop. But if they're just leaning on one player like they did last year with Ryan Conan, it's going to be a recipe for disaster for the Flyers. Lewis hit .333, and despite not having a service ace, they had 32 digs compared to UCLA's 24, and then they had one more block than UCLA as a team. So Lewis was impressive. I thought UCLA was a bit shorthanded, as I had to double check who they had and who they didn't have. The Bruins were led by Alex Knight, who had 9 kills. He did hit .615. Kevin Cobrin had 8 kills. He hit .368. Ido David had 9 kills, but he had a hitting percentage of .263. And then Merrick McHenry had 7 kills, and he had a hitting percentage of .375. UCLA surprisingly ran a 6-2 offense as Miles Partain and Marcus Partain, I guess they're brothers, had 17 and 16 assists respectively. But as a team, UCLA only hit .210, and that's not going to get the job done regardless of who their opponent is. Like, UCLA cannot hit .210, otherwise it's going to be a disaster for them night in and night out. UCLA does have a promising team. Again, it's still early in the season. I don't think anybody should be hitting the panic button. But for me, I think UCLA, this was a little surprising. If they had lost in 4 or 5, I wouldn't have been overly surprised. But in straight sets, this must have been a case of Lewis actually showing their true potential. And it's also the case of it's still early in the season, so let's not hit the panic button all that much. Adam says, which NFL players do you think would make the best volleyballers? Oh gosh. That's actually a very good question. I'd probably say, and of course Adam wouldn't ask an NFL question. I'm kidding, Adam. But thank you for asking that question. I think anyone that's like a safety or maybe a cornerback could probably be a good volleyball player, considering they have big hands and they're able to like tip the ball or hit the ball. I have seen volleyball players play football as well, especially in high school. So I just don't think it would happen in college or anything of that sort. But I think any safety or cornerback would probably be a good volleyball player. But that's just me. So, back to the volleyball action. So, there was that little upset right there. Now, this upset was rather surprising, but when I looked at it, I was like, oh. So this was number 15 Ball State. Yes, Ball State, the same Ball State from Muncie, Indiana, sweeping number 1 Hawaii. Now, I was very surprised to see a sweep. I know Ball State has a solid team, but sweeping Hawaii? I get it. It was at Muncie, but I was just flabbergasted. However, I don't even need to look at the lead changes and the stats, because all I need to do is basically look at Hawaii's roster, or all I needed to do was look at Hawaii's roster and say, that's why they didn't win. Hawaii had 4 missing starters. They were without Chaz Galloway, one of their, I think, debatably the best outside hitter in the nation. Jakob Tella, their setter. They didn't have Philip Humler, and they also didn't have their middle blocker, Guilherme Voss. Hawaii cannot win without those 4. I'm just going to say it right there and then, as Hawaii's kill leader was Spyros Chakas and Kanai Akana, who each had 6 kills. Oh yeah, and also Dimitrios Mouchilas had 6 kills as well. I'm probably butchering their names, and I do apologize. As for Hawaii, they only hit 159, and I'm like, oh my good golly gracious. Like, yeah, Hawaii needed Voss and Galloway and Humler, considering they could not win without those players. Like, without those players, Hawaii wouldn't be able to beat a drum. And that's no disrespect, honestly, but I think, remember, Hawaii lost most of its starters from last year. They lost like pretty much their entire starting lineup outside of Galloway and the other players that I mentioned. So, yeah. Currently right now, Ball State and Hawaii are playing as they're actually going to a 5th set, as Hawaii, despite being shorthanded, is pushing them to a 5th set, as they actually do have Humler in the lineup. Ball State was led by Caleb Jenis, who had 19 kills, while Angelos Vandeleris had 14 kills. As a team, Ball State hit .410, which obviously when Hawaii's missing their best middle, it's not going to look pretty in terms of the opponent's hitting percentage, as Ball State had their way no matter what. And I don't even need to look at the stats, considering Hawaii is much better than that. Like, when at full strength, Hawaii is a force to be reckoned with. And remember, it's still early in the volleyball season. We don't need to be hitting the panic button on matches like that. Maybe the UCLA one, but I digress. So, continuing on with the upsets, we had Ohio State falling to UC Santa Barbara in the second matchup of the Battle of the Bigs crossover matches. So this match took place at the Thunderdome, as did Penn State's matchup against UC Santa Barbara. So the first set, UC Santa Barbara really set the tone, as I'm just going to say this right now, there were no lead changes, as whichever team jumped out to an early lead was the team that basically won set number 1, 2, 3, or 4. As UC Santa Barbara took the first set 25-19. It was very surprising to see that, and I'm like, is UC Santa Barbara better than what everyone indicated? Because it's certainly looking like it. The second set, the Gauchos never trailed, and there were no ties, as they took the second set 25-15, and I was like, good lord, this Santa Barbara team is actually better than what we all claimed to be. I thought they were going to have a little bit of a down year. Remember, they lost a lot of players to graduation, but they do have a good chunk of players that they returned. So it was no surprise that UC Santa Barbara was just on their A game. And I guess they needed a little bit of a wake-up call after losing to not only USC twice, but also losing to Princeton. That was kind of a shocker right there, just because Princeton hadn't played a season last year due to COVID and the Ivy League shutting down everything. So they're kind of getting back their sea legs when it comes to this whole thing. So the third set, on the other hand, was a lot closer than what it appeared to be, as there were 5 ties, but Ohio State led most of the way. It looked as if the Gauchos were going to try to make a comeback, but Ohio State was able to stave them off and take the third set 28-26. So it was basically a deuce game. So it was impressive stuff. And UC Santa Barbara came back from a 10-5 deficit to tie it at 22-22. And the Gauchos did survive 3 set points, but unfortunately for them, Ohio State was able to convert on that 4th set point, as the Buckeyes actually scored off of the longest rally of the night, and they also scored off a service ace immediately after that. So that was your third set in a nutshell. The 4th set belonged to UC Santa Barbara, as it obviously never trailed, and they hit 500 in that set. They hit 524, only totaling 2 hitting errors, which was very impressive, as the Gauchos won that 4th set 25-17, completing the win over number 9 Ohio State. So for me, I was very impressed by UC Santa Barbara, and I think we're all starting to see the actual UC Santa Barbara. I think UC Santa Barbara's matches previously did not reflect them, just because they were still trying to shake off the rust, and obviously not facing certain other opponents kind of, I think, maybe messed with them. And I think if anything, the Princeton loss was kind of the turning point and wake-up call for the Gauchos. The Gauchos were led by Ryan Wilcox, who had 16 kills, while Dane Chalmers added 11 kills. Donovan Todorov added 9 kills, while Shah Haoshin added 8 kills. As a team, the Gauchos hit 382, which was very impressive. I also did not know this stat, and I also did not know this in general. UC Santa Barbara actually inserted Dane Chalmers into their starting lineup, and ever since Chalmers has been a part of the lineup, the Gauchos have gone 3-0. So that has been crucial right there, and I'm just going to actually gush when I say this about Dane. I've actually seen Dane Chalmers play in high school. He's a phenomenal player, and I'm not trying to be a fanboy, but he was a freaking baller back in his days at Newport Harbor High School. He was a stud. He helped lead them to their first championship since 1999, and he led them to a 39-1 record. So Chalmers is the real deal, and I'm glad he's actually getting some playing time, just because he deserves it. He's a guy that works hard, and he doesn't let anything deter him for the most part. So good job to Dane Chalmers. A salute to him. The Gauchos also outblocked Ohio State 12.5-8, as the Gauchos also added 3 service aces to Ohio State's 2. And, like I said, Santa Barbara hit 382 on the night. They hit 500 twice in the match, as in set number 2, this UC Santa Barbara hit 556, and they only had 1 hitting error, which is very impressive. And hitting 500 in that 4th set was basically the exclamation point. They also hit 318 in set number 1, which was also pretty impressive. Like, the Gauchos really showed their stuff. UC Santa Barbara really showed who they were. As for Ohio State, they were led by a plethora of kill leaders. They actually had 3 kill leaders in double digits, as Martin Lallement had 16 kills, while Samuel Clark and Jacob Pasteur each had 11. As a team, Ohio State only hit 151, and that is not going to get the job done. I think for me, Ohio State still has a little bit to learn. I kind of feel they got a little too high off of that weekend, as they almost, off of the Pac-12 Big Ten weekend where they almost beat UCLA and they beat USC. So I think Ohio State needs to find that balance of not being too high off of the wins, but not being too low off the losses. And missing 23 serves does not help their matters in any sort of way. So, all in all, for Ohio State, this was still a learning process. I think the Gauchos proved themselves as a great team, while Ohio State still has a little bit to learn when it comes to their team. And honestly, I still wouldn't count out Ohio State. They have a good roster. Their players are studs. Kevin Burch is a phenomenal coach. I think for me, it's just all about getting better. Like, if the Buckeyes can get better, I think they can possibly make noise in the MIVA. It's going to be a competitive MIVA because you not only have your Lewis and your Loyola, you also have Ball State, which, like I said, they're currently in a fifth set with Hawaii, despite Hawaii being a little short-handed. And then you also have McKendree, which is still hovering around the receiving vote / bottom of the coaches poll. So for me, I think the MIVA is going to be a dogfight, and there's not going to be any easy match, honestly. So for me, I think it's going to be competitive, and I like a competitive conference. I don't like a one-sided conference. It really, 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 really is dumb. But that's my opinion. So that's going to do it for most of the upsets from last week, or I wouldn't call them upsets. Well, they were all upsets, but most of the matches that I recapped from this past weekend. I should also make note that on Wednesday, USC edged out UC Irvine at home. I'm sorry, this was Friday. Friday, USC edged out UC Irvine at the Bren Event Center in Irvine in 5 sets. On Wednesday, the Trojans straight up swept UC Irvine at the Galen Center. So for me, USC moves to 7-1 on the season, and they're looking pretty good. For a team that wasn't really expected to have too many expectations, they're actually performing quite well. And I think they bounced back well from that Ohio State loss. Just imagine if USC didn't drop that second set. It might have been a different perspective. I'm not trying to take anything away from Ohio State. I'm just saying I think we need to put some respect on USC's name. And then I also made note of Princeton's loss to UC San Diego. They barely lost to UC San Diego in 5 at home. So all in all, those are those matchups right there. We're actually going to take ourselves a quick little breaky break. When we come back, we'll actually have the recap of the Long Beach State matches that I covered, as I covered the Ohio State-Long Beach State match for IE Sports Radio, as well as the Penn State match against Long Beach State. And then I'll also get into my meet and greet interview with Tyler Hildebrand, and then we'll get on into Week 5's matches, and then I'll send you all on your way. So you're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
From the shores of the Puget Sound to the rushing waters of the Columbia River, stretching across the Great Cascades, and on IE Sports Radio lives the Northwest Territory Sports Show, hosted by me, Brad Buckingham. On this show, I cover all the great collegiate and professional sport teams that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks, Seattle Mariners, Sounders, and even the Seattle Kraken. But I can't forget all of that is good in Oregon either. I got the Trailblazers, the Oregon Ducks, the Beavers, even the Timbers, and much, much more. You can listen to the show every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, noon to 1 p.m. Pacific on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' the NorCal Sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' the NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely do check out those two shows, Northwest Territory Sports with Brad Buckingham, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then also check out Reppin' to NorCal Sports with Gina G. She will be talking about the Niners-Rams game, as let's just say it didn't go well for the team wearing red. But without any further delay, let's get back into the volleyball action. We're talking volleyball here, not football here. So anyway, just a quick update on Hawaii and Ball State in men's volleyball. Ball State leads Hawaii 9-8, as this is basically going to be down to the wire, as Ball State actually led 8-5, but unfortunately for them, Hawaii has rallied the troops. They are on a 3-1 run, and they have taken a timeout. So, actually, I step away from that match, and we'll recap the last two matches from week number 4, as we had Ohio State versus Long Beach State, as Long Beach State actually won this match. This wasn't an upset, but I feel I need to recap it just because, well, for starters, I covered that match, and I'd hate to not cover it, or not recap it. So, for Long Beach State, they came in 4-0, while Ohio State was coming in at 4-1. Long Beach, in this matchup, was coming off of a 3-set win over Loyola of Chicago. Sorry, Adam. As they took on a solid Ohio State team coming off of a solid weekend against UCLA and USC. The first set actually was a little back and forth despite not being so. There were 6 ties. Long Beach actually led for the most part, and they even had set point. They had 4 set points, but unfortunately they just could not convert it, as Ohio State used a 5-0 run after trailing 24-21, and they were able to take the first set 26-24. It was very impressive because Ohio State was actually doing everything correct. They were passing the ball well. They served the ball really well. They got 2 aces when it truly mattered. And honestly, I think for Ohio State, it showed their resilience. The second set, it was a little bit more Long Beach, as the rest of the way, Ohio State never ever led again, which is disappointing, but it just goes to show the dominance of Long Beach State, as the second set Long Beach State won 25-20. The third set, Long Beach State won 25-15. Now, the fourth set was a little dramatic. Despite not having any ties or lead changes, Ohio State just was still in striking distance. Unfortunately for them, they just could not pounce on Long Beach State. They just were unable to get that big point to pull them within 2 or 1, as Long Beach State took that fourth set 25-22, as the Beach really showed why they are the number 3 team in the nation. Ohio State, like I said, it's still a live and learn moment. They're still having a solid season. They have some solid players, as Long Beach State was led by Alex Nikolov, who had 24 points. He hit .500 for the match. This kid right here is only a freshman, and he is doing big things for the Beach. And that's just another tool in Long Beach State's toolbox, and it's really performing well. And I think that just makes Long Beach State a much better team. Spencer Olivier also added 16 kills. He only had 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .382, which was also impressive. And then Clark Godbold had 9 kills, and he had a hitting percentage of .368. As a team, Long Beach State hit .431, which was very impressive. Their only lowest hitting percentage was actually .393, which, when you look at it, it's not really a bad hitting percentage. It's just that Ohio State just did everything a little bit better. And in set 1, Ohio State coincidentally hit .483, as both teams just flexed their hitters throughout most of the match. As for Ohio State, they were led by Samuel Clark, who had 18 kills, while Jacob Pasteur added 14 kills, and then Martin Lallemand chipped in 8 kills. As a team, Ohio State hit an impressive .337, which I actually think that's very good, considering, despite facing a tall and talented Long Beach State team, who, might I add, had 10 blocks on the night, 10 team blocks, really stepped up. And I think Ohio State they're right there. It's just that they have to just complete the package. Ohio State did outdig Long Beach State 32-26, but like I said, the block was kind of the bigger story for Ohio State, as they only had 3.5 blocks as a team, which is quite concerning. And then after that big service ace run in set number 1, Ohio State didn't really have too many service aces altogether, as they only had 2 on the night, and they missed 13 serves. Long Beach State had 6 service aces, as they got 3 from Godbold, 2 from Nikolov, and then the other one came from Simon Torwey. So, for me, I think this really showed how good Long Beach State really is, and Ohio State does have potential. I actually caught up with Ohio State men's volleyball coach Kevin Burch, and former Set Point guest, who talked about Ohio State after the match. I will say this about the interviews that I had with the opposing coaches. There was music in the background. I apologize for that. I could not control it just because, well, Long Beach State likes to play music after their games, which, yay. Do this with the music in the background, but all right, Coach Burch, you put up a good fight against...
I don't know. He's probably pulling up.
You put up a good fight against a very tough Long Beach State team, but you fell a little short. What do you think happened after that first set on what went awry for you all?
Well, I mean, I think their service pressure is pretty elite. I mean, just for that kind of service pressure and only 11 service errors, you got to give a lot of credit to them. Nikolov was pretty tough to stop. I think defense has kind of been our MO this year, and I thought that they kind of trailed off a little bit. Granted, they make it really, really difficult to be good defensively, so give them a lot of credit again. But, I think we can be better defensively. I think we got to dial up some more service pressure, too, against teams like that. But, I think you got to give them a lot of credit for how they responded to that loss in the first set.
Samuel really stepped up for you all, as well as Martin and Jacob. What can you say about them? And are they your three-headed monster when it comes to offense?
Yeah, for sure. I think, this team, I just told them that, what impresses me the most is that what we've been working on in practice has really been showing through in matches. This week we put a little more time towards our offense progression, and, I thought that showed. The other thing to remember, too, is Sam. Sam was a middle blocker until about a month ago. So, his progression as an opposite is pretty impressive. You got to give him a lot of credit for his diligence and his work ethic.
despite the loss, your team hit 337. What can you say about your team's offense and how it was clicking despite facing some of those giants on Long Beach?
Yeah, really proud of our offense, especially out of system. That was a great number, especially for how many out of system swings that we were taking. So give our guys a lot of credit, and we tried to make it tough on them, even though they were serving tough and getting us off the net quite a bit.
The California swing has kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster. What's it going to take to end the California swing on a high note against Santa Barbara?
Well, again, I think our staple and our identity above all else is consistent defense. And if we're playing consistent defense, I think all the rest kind of follows through. So, I'd like to see us play some better defense tomorrow night. I'd like to see us make some of those adjustments, which I think we will. And when we do that, I think we'll be in a much better spot tomorrow.
Have you seen a little film on UC Santa Barbara, and did you know that they swept Penn State tonight?
I didn't know they swept them, actually. That's kind of shocking, to be honest. They're a little bit of an up and down team, but they got a ton of weapons. They've recruited well for a really long time. Rick does a really, really good job there. So we know we're going to face another tough battle. We don't come out here to play easy teams. We come out here to get tested and find out a lot about who we are. And Santa Barbara is certainly going to be another great test for us. That's for sure.
And then I know MIVA play doesn't start for another few weeks, but what's it going to take to win the MIVA with Loyola being the favorite and then Lewis being up there in talent?
It's a great question. Our conference has been tough for a long time. There's a lot of parity. I think it's going to take a lot of, again, we got to continue to get better. The great part, again, about this team is that we're continuing to show progress every week as far as what we're working on. So I think as long as we do that, we'll be in the mix. But we're certainly going to get tested from Lewis, Loyola. McKendree, too, is going to be really good. There's going to be a lot of good teams that will test us on a nightly basis. And, I think our guys are up for the challenge. They're getting tougher. They're getting stronger. They're getting, they're maturing quite a bit. And they're showing they're up for a good fight. And I think they're going to be ready for it when we come conference time.
Anyone else step up for you tonight? And anyone else that stepped up for you that's kind of been an unsung hero?
Parker, I thought he struggled a little bit in sets 2 and 3 in serve receive, but to see him fight through it, and then 16 digs. Traditionally, digging has not been his strength, but for him to come up big in a big match and show some growth in that area is something I'm proud of and something he should be proud of.
So that was my interview with Kevin Burch. Again, I apologize for the music in the background, but there was nothing I can do about that. So, from what I gathered, Ohio State does have a very solid team. They really have potential, and I think they can make noise in the MIVA. And Kevin Burch said it best. They don't travel out to California to play easy teams or catch a few rays. They travel out here to face some of the most potent talent there is to man, such as UC Santa Barbara, UCLA, Long Beach State, USC. So for me, I think they're going to be just fine when they come into conference play. And this California challenge has kind of been, a challenge, and it was kind of their first test of the season, as it only is going to get tougher from here on out. So coincidentally, I was actually in the press conference with Alan Knipe, as well as a few other players. I actually just asked Alan Knipe questions on the match, as I actually only limited the press conference to just my questions. Otherwise, this could be a little bit longer than it needed to be. So here is my questions from the Long Beach State side of things in the Long Beach State-Ohio State men's volleyball match.
This is Teran Rodriguez of Set Point. This question for Alan Knipe or any of the players. There were a lot of rallies in the match, but one in particular was in set 4 where Ohio State was about to come back, but then you won that big rally. Do you think that was the turning point of that 4th set?
Absolutely. I think long rallies that are especially effort-based rallies, it's just about grit, getting back to the net quickly to block, running a ball down into the crowd, covering your hitters. You win those long rallies, it tends to come in bunches then in points. You get that point and the next one. Not always, but that one, maybe the other one, because the other team's a little frustrated that they put in that kind of effort, because that's one of those plays that either team deserved to win that point, right? So absolutely, they're super important. They're in volleyball, it's a way of continuing or getting momentum. If you have it, you continue it, and if you don't have it, it's a way to get it, because it fires up your fans, it fires up your teammates to know how hard you had to work for a point and you succeeded. So yeah, it's a big deal.
It's the question for Spencer. So obviously, Alex Nikolov has been stepping up. What can you say about Alex and his gameplay and how, despite him being a freshman, he's just taken the team by storm?
I think Alex has been doing a great job. Regardless if he's a freshman, he's killing the ball, he's passing the ball, he's blocking balls, and it actually just really makes it easier on the pin hitters and all the other hitters, how people are so worried about him that it just frees us up a little bit more. So I think he's doing a great job.
So yeah, that was my bad. I actually asked Spencer Olivier a question about Alex Nikolov, but I think this could be your early Freshman of the Year candidate in the Big West Conference. It's a little too early to say that, but Nikolov has just, once again, he's taken Long Beach State by storm, and he's taken the entire nation by storm, and I think he is doing big things. So this is my second question for Alan Knipe.
This is the question for Alan Knipe. Obviously, your outside hitters did well, but your middles also kind of stepped up, along with Simon, who pretty much did a little of everything with blocking, and he had that one ace. Talk to us about how Simon did a little of everything, and then Shane kind of stepped up as well in the middle.
Yeah, our middles are really talented, and with Simon, it's really a new position for him. Obviously, he was an opposite, and he's learning that position, but he's doing really well. We can set them, and there's going to be times that they're going to have big numbers, big attempts in a match, and sometimes they're not. It's not about every match is going to look the same. We pride ourselves on an offense that will set anybody at any time. And there's going to be matches that we're heavy at the pins or heavy with Clark. We've been heavy with Clark at the beginning of the season. There's going to be times we're heavy in the middle of the court. Middle of the court meaning we're going to set our middles. We're going to set our BIC a lot. Tonight it was more BIC than it was middle. But we know that we have really offensive middles, not just Shane and Simon, but with the other middles we have, especially with Moody and Grant Maroki. So we're really fired up on that. The other thing that I thought was huge, because their numbers weren't huge in attacks, but their communication and their running of our block and defense was big. So the thing is that they help us score points, and they did that with their blocking. They did it when we set them, and they both scored points from the end line, and that's great for middle blockers.
So to bungee off of what Knipe said in that conference, Holdaway also recorded 4 blocks, or block assists, but when it comes to blocks individually, blocks can be either solo blocks or block assists, so they basically just count as one. But as a team, the assists would basically go to one half of the person and the other half. And then also Simon Torwey had 5 blocks, a service ace, and 5 kills, while Shane Holdaway chipped in 5 kills against Ohio State as well. So Long Beach State has a lot of offensive/defensive talent on their team, and it just makes them so good. And I think for Long Beach State that this could be a promising season for them, and a big season for them at that. So this is my final question of the press conference between Ohio State and Long Beach State to Alan Knipe.
We've got Penn State, which has kind of been in a little bit of a lull as they just lost to Santa Barbara and then they lost to USC and UCLA. How are you going to prepare for that Penn State team, and have you seen a little film on them, a team that has returned all but one of its players from last year?
Yeah, we watched some video. We certainly prep for both teams. You don't have time to do all your prep, the night after the first game. And I think our guys are incredibly mature about being able to watch video, heavy on Ohio State with a taste of Penn State. And then we'll get some more actually right now for about a half an hour, and then get some more in the morning. I have no idea what happened at the Santa Barbara game. So I'm learning this real time right now that they lost the match. So it really doesn't matter to me. This is a really talented team. They fire the ball. They will probably set the ball as fast as any team we will see all year. That's great for us. It'll stress our block to make good reads and get our block of defense in the right spot. But more importantly, they'll be responding off a loss, which we know we'll see a spike in their energy level and their aggression probably from the end line with their serves. This is once again, Mark is a good friend of mine, their head coach. He's been there a long time. They've had a tremendous amount of success, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, as does our entire program. So the prep will be be like we prep for every team. Penn State becomes the most important match for us tomorrow night because it's the next one on our calendar. Ohio State was the most important one tonight. So we'll prep the same way we did, and we'll go out and try to be better than we were tonight, and probably know that we're going to have to do some things in a different way to be successful against a different team. It won't be the same match.
So that was pretty much my interview with Alan Knipe, or my questions for Alan Knipe, and the one question to Spencer Olivier. So jumping over to the Penn State-Long Beach State matchup, this was a fire matchup, and this definitely lived up to the hype of match of the week. So the first set between Penn State and Long Beach State was rather dramatic, as Penn State actually got the early jump, and they were really serving the ball tough. They were just making it really tough on Long Beach State. Long Beach just could not get into their offense effectively. And then as the set went on, Long Beach State eventually started to pick up the pieces. They led 24-22 as they had 2 set points. Actually, no, it was 24-21, and then Penn State got a point, and then Penn State got 2 service aces from Brett Wildman, as that was very crucial for Penn State, as that tied the matchup at 24 apiece in set 1. But down the stretch, Penn State missed serves, which was very costly, as Long Beach State eventually won the first set 27-25. I was quite impressed that Long Beach State held on. It wasn't like when they played Lewis, or back when they played Ohio State, where they just unfortunately relinquished the lead and it basically fell apart in their face. The second set saw Penn State just dominate that set. Well, it wasn't a true dominant set, but they never trailed and there were no ties, as Penn State won the second set 25-21. They basically were in business in that set. They got everyone involved. Cal Fisher, Brett Wildman, that was their two-headed monster. They also had a third head on that monster, as you'll see as the match progresses. So the third set, Long Beach State finally got back on track. There was only one tie and one lead change, and Long Beach State just took it and ran as they won the third set 25-20, as they led 2-1 in the match. And I'm thinking, okay, it looks like Penn State has finally reached its end, and Long Beach State has basically played up to their full potential, just because Long Beach State had quite a bit of hustle points, and there was a lot of good plays in that match from both teams, as you probably saw on my Set Point Twitter account, where I was posting video clips and whatnot. So there was that right there. And then the fourth set, it was really close. 13 ties, which was the most in any set. That was actually half the total ties altogether. And there were 5 lead changes, as Penn State had the lead, then Long Beach had the lead. It was just a tug of war. Then Penn State eventually earned the lead at 19-18. And despite saving 1 set point, Long Beach State missed a serve long, as Penn State won the fourth set 25-23, as that tied the match at 2 sets apiece, as Penn State really, they showed why they're still a top 5 team. The fifth set, on the other hand, was rather close early on, as Long Beach State had an early lead, but then Penn State started pulling away. Remember this kid's name, Toby Ezeonu. He was making it look easy out there. He was a force in the middle, and it was still learning. I think he's still an underclassman. I actually don't know what his grade level is, but he was just phenomenal. He was just pounding kills in the middle. He actually recorded quite a bit of blocks. Penn State was not big on blocking in the fifth set, as Penn State was holding a good amount of leads. They eventually went up 13-10. They were feeling the upset, and then off of a block from Toby, Penn State won the fifth set 15-11. Ezeonu actually had the last 3 points for Penn State, as once again he stepped up his game, and that is big time right there. And I actually caught up with Toby Ezeonu after Penn State's thrilling victory over Long Beach State. All right, Toby, your team picked up a huge win, knocking off Long Beach State in 5 sets. What were the keys to the victory, and how were you able to take down this tough Long Beach team on the road?
Well, I think one thing that we did differently than yesterday's game was that we just really played together. We were consistent with our swings, and we just trusted each other. We talked about it this morning. We just said have fun, and then that's what we did, and then we felt comfortable, and then we won. So, yeah, I felt like being comfortable and being around our teammates made a big impact in this victory.
It looked as if Long Beach was going to make a comeback in that 4th set, but then you closed the door on them. What did you all do differently, and what did you adjust to make sure Long Beach didn't complete the comeback?
We just fixed our mistakes. We I don't know, we just fixed our mistakes. We used their errors, and then we just adjusted and got our serves in, and eventually we overpowered them. I don't know.
You had the last 3 points of the match, for Penn State. What can you say about your team's resilience, and how big of a win is this for you all?
Well, Long Beach is definitely a good team for sure, so this is definitely a good win for us. It's going to boost our morale, boost our confidence, and I feel like we definitely needed this after just going back-to-back to Cali trips and having experience in previous games in here. So I feel like it was good. Yeah.
The California road trips kind of was a little bit rough to you, as last week USC and UCLA got the better of you, and then last night you lost to Santa Barbara. What did you all have to do, and what did Coach Pavlik tell you before the game started?
It wasn't really Coach Pav. It was just our team captains, Will, Brett, the older guys, Cole, Fish. We gathered up together. We talked about our problems, and then we just adjusted. As you said, we just played. One thing we took away from this, we just said have fun while playing the game, and that's what we did. Felt comfortable, and we I don't know if that's all you say. I don't know.
All right. So you start EIVA play next week, if I'm not mistaken. What's it going to take to win the EIVA, and how beneficial are these 8 matches that you played in against these ranked opponents?
I felt like these matches were just a stepping stone for us to get ready for the conference, and I feel like these matches are really good because we don't have. I'm not trying to embarrass our conference, but these teams are definitely teams that we won't see in our conference. So I feel like we're thankful for this opportunity really, and just take a toll and then go to our conference and then dominate.
So, obviously you returned most of your players from last year.
Yep.
How special of a team is this, and how close do you think you are, and what's it going to take to make a deep championship run?
We just got to play the same way we played today, together, having fun, being not worrying about the score, not worrying about our errors, and just moving on to the next play. I feel like those plays that's what makes us Penn State,
So yeah, that was my interview with Toby Ezeonu. Obviously, he was a little starstruck, and I wouldn't call him shy, but he just was at a loss for words after this night. Toby had a whopping 16 kills, but that wasn't the crazy number. He had 17 swings for a hitting percentage of .941, and he didn't have one hitting error. Those basically are Madden numbers right there. 16 kills on 17 swings for a hitting percentage of over 900. He was insane in the middle. I was very surprised when I saw that number. I'm like, whoa, this kid cannot be stopped. And Coach Pavlik actually talked about him in a little bit, but before I get into Mark Pavlik's interview, Brett Wildman chipped in 18 kills. He had a hitting percentage of .438, and then Cal Fisher had 15 kills. He did have 9 hitting errors and a hitting percentage of only .176, but that was okay because Penn State hit .302, and they got a lot of contributors as well, as they also got contributors from Sam Marsh and Michael Valenzi, and to me, I think Penn State really proved. This was my first time seeing Penn State. I'm most likely busy, and I sometimes don't have enough time to look at the live stream of some of these matches, but this was my first time seeing Penn State in action, in person, and honestly, Penn State did not disappoint. Another player who had a big night was Will Bantle, as he had 14 digs, and he actually did not have any reception errors, which was very impressive. I really thought Will Bantle was underrated. He is the libero for Penn State. He actually did not play libero back in his high school days at Loyola of Los Angeles, but for me, I think Will stepped up big time. Despite Penn State only out-digging Long Beach State by 1, Penn State really strut their stuff. Even though they had only 7 blocks, they really impressed, and they actually got a good chunk of those blocks in that 5th set, courtesy of Ezeonu, as Toby had 2 solo blocks and 3 block assists for a grand total of 5 blocks altogether. So Toby really carried the team personally, and I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And honestly, it's just amazing. And Coach Pavlik actually talks about him in a little bit, as I interviewed Mark Pavlik following Penn State's win over Long Beach State.
So, all right, Coach. So your team managed to pick up a big win over Long Beach State and cap off the California road trip with a big victory. What were the keys to winning this game against a tough Long Beach team?
Well, anytime you play Long Beach, you know you're going to be in a battle with their passing and serving. And we knew that we were going to be challenged as passers, and we were. And, with Nikolov serving the ball the way he does, and we knew that there were going to be stretches where we would have to respond. And I thought, for the most part, we responded pretty well to their serving. And I thought our serving got us some really critical points at times.
Toby came up big in the 5th set, and he also had a big game overall. What can you say about Toby and how he stepped up for you all?
He's still learning, and this environment is what he needs to understand is going to require the best of him. And I think tonight was one of those evenings where, Toby took a big step forward. The big thing is, can he maintain this now? Next week we have Princeton and George Mason. Can he do the same thing there? He's certainly got the God-given gifts to be a monster in this sport. And tonight, you're right, he came up two huge stuff blocks in game 5. And, I don't know what he finished hitting, but 15 points. So he's got to be somewhere up around double-digit kills with 2 blocks and an ace. So this is something that Tobe has to just live through and learn from.
Cal and Brett were also pivotal for your team. What can you say about Cal and Brett and how they've stepped up as leaders?
Well, last year was the same thing. And I thought this was the first night where Brett really played at a level a point scoring level that we need him to play at. I thought Fish struggled with the block that was in front of him, but that didn't affect his defense. That didn't affect his serving. They just compete hard. And we'll see where we go with that this year.
The California road trip was kind of a little bit of a roller coaster, as USC and UCLA kind of stuck it to you, and then Santa Barbara was kind of a tough one. What can you say about playing these California teams and being away from rec hall?
Well, I put my team in a situation where success was not very easy. We made 3 cross-country trips in 8 days. So you start looking across the country at who's winning and losing. Santa Barbara goes out, or San Diego goes out to New Jersey Tech. What happens? Yeah. New Jersey Tech wins. You got teams that travel out this way. What happens? The home team wins. So this is one of those things that I think we got to learn from, because hopefully we're back here in May. And we're not back here the day before we play. It'll be much easier to plan and to get acclimated to time. But this is a great opportunity for our guys to understand this is what we need to do.
You returned most of your players from last year. How special is this team for you all?
Do you have the packet?
your team returns most of its players from last year. How special is this team, and how close is this team as your team on paper looks like a good championship caliber team?
We think it is, but it's only January. How do we keep them healthy? How do we get better by the time end of April, beginning of May roll around? I think that's the question that all of us are asking, all the coaches of their respective teams. This group is a tight group. They're a great bunch of kids. Their parents have done a wonderful job raising them. They're fun to be in the gym with. And this was the first out of the 4 matches that we've had out here. This was the first match where I just thought we played. We didn't try to worry about what happens if. We just played. Believed in our strengths and played.
And then you start EIVA play next week. Obviously you were chosen as the big favorite, but are there any teams that you're looking out for, or are you looking out for pretty much everybody?
Yeah, the EIVA is no longer your grandfather's EIVA. New Jersey Tech is for real. They're going to play the game hard. They're going to play it well. Jay's doing a great job at George Mason. You know you're going to have your hands full when you play him. Harvard and Princeton are trying to figure out their path back after not training for a year. So my guess is as the season wears on, they're just going to get better, better, and better. St. Francis, this is their last year in the EIVA, and them, Sacred Heart and St. Francis Brooklyn are going with the NEC. So they're going to want to leave on a high note. And Charleston's sitting there, new coach, they're just kind of waiting to get rolling. It's going to be a battle. It is going to be a battle.
Did anyone else stand out to you that I didn't make note of?
No, I thought you did pretty well. I thought Cole Bogner had a very good match tonight. I thought he made some great choices at times, and he just kept feeding Toby and let Toby do the rest.
So that was basically my interview with Mark Pavlik. Really nice guy, and there's a reason why I picked Penn State, Long Beach State as match of the week, as both these teams really strut their stuff, and they really put on a show. And Penn State, I give them a lot of credit. Coming off of a tough loss against UC Santa Barbara, that's not easy to do, because you're playing a perennial powerhouse in Long Beach State. You're on the road at the Pyramid, despite it not being at full capacity. You were able to do that and beat Long Beach State despite not having your best games in California, and despite Long Beach State coming in undefeated. Toby had himself the big game, really huge game at that. Brett Wildman stepped up, and all in all, it was just a great match for Penn State altogether, and they really earned the victory, and I was very impressed by them. I really thought they were just all around great and efficient, and there's a reason why I've been singing high praises about Penn State men's volleyball. So I actually, silly me, unfortunately was a little late to the press conference for following the Long Beach State Penn State matchup, and I did ask a couple questions to Alan Knipe regarding the loss. So here are my questions to Alan Knipe following Long Beach State's loss to Penn State.
Or a question for Coach Knipe. The fourth set looked like it was back and forth, as it was just a tug of war, and you looked like you all were going to make a comeback and push it to a deuce game. What do you think your team could have done better to try to take the match and not have a fifth set?
Well, when you get to men's volleyball tends to be kind of a tie when you get to 20 all, and we pride ourselves in being really composed, and it comes down to executing late. And bottom line is we didn't execute. We had a couple of opportunities to turn some digs into points that we didn't, and that's whether it's the dig, whether it's the set, whether it's the swing, whether it's legs not underneath us. It doesn't really matter. We didn't convert at the end of the fourth set, but we did get ourselves back to 24-23. So the fight was there. And, if you look at the first set, we did a nice job of executing late, because that game was the same way. Eight ties in set 1, 13 ties in set 4. That's good, big-time volleyball, and you're going to grow from it. You feel the stress. You feel the anxiety. You learn how to go back and serve in those moments. I think that serving's been one of the best things we've done. And even though our errors weren't ridiculously bad by any stretch of the imagination, I certainly don't think we were freed up to hit our serves the way we have been maybe earlier in the match, maybe the last couple of matches. And I'm big on our guys of trusting their toss and trusting their routine, and I don't think we were really freed up to do that. So maybe that was something I could have probably done, is free them up a little bit more, give them a little bit more rope to make some errors and kind of get themselves going and pull them off the net and get some easy points. And that, because when a team's scoring points on the other side and with their serve putting so much pressure on you, it's good for your block and defense to take some pressure off of your offense from dealing with that onslaught. In other words, to return the blow and pull them off the net, not make things easy. I thought, like I said, serving-wise, the numbers are going to look really, really good. And our numbers have been great all year. But there was some times late in the fourth set, or from the middle to the end of the fourth set and throughout the fifth set, that it was way too comfortable for them.
That's a question for Alan. They only had 7 blocks on the night. What can you say about your pin hitters and how they were able to penetrate their blocks for the most part of this match?
Yeah, we almost doubled their blocks. We blocked really well right out of the gate. I think we had 6 or 7 in the first set, and then maybe it kind of cooled down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, what it says is that offensively, our guys did a really good job under the circumstances. When a team only had, I think they got 2 or 3 in the fifth set. But it was more of, we pride ourselves on being able to be in a medium system offense, meaning the pass doesn't have to be perfect because teams are ripping their serves. And if we pass a little bit off the net, we can keep more guys involved. You look at the stats, you look at the numbers right now, and we were just pretty much riding our pins tonight. And that's not necessarily what we want to do. We need to be better at that. And that's on me and on getting these guys prepared to have a little bit more balance. Our motto is, we'll set anybody at any time, at any moment. And it didn't feel like that a lot tonight.
All right, and this is a question for either Alan or Mason. Next up is USC, as they've kind of had a little bit of a roller coaster ride. They went 5 with UC Irvine, and they also have UC San Diego on Wednesday. What's it going to take to cool off a hot Trojans team and get back in the win column?
Yeah, complete volleyball. Building from the good of this match, learning from the bad of this match. But I think Mike was going to ask about scheduling. This schedule is on purpose, and this schedule is for growth. We want to win every set. We want to win every match. But we're trying to be the best volleyball team we're capable by the end of the season. And there's going to be some ups and some downs along the way. There's some guys out there with not a tremendous amount of experience, but they're going to learn, and they're incredibly invested in what we're doing, and they are training really, really hard. The key will be that we can apply the lessons learned into our training and have it be visible in our competition next Friday night. Not everything, some of it. And repeat that process throughout the season. And that's my job, because the effort is there, the attention to detail is there. And sometimes you play a team that played really, really well, a well-coached team with a lot of guys that have been around for a couple of years, redshirted years, COVID years, a lot of good arms on that team. They have some pride, and they played like that tonight with their back against the wall, which was great for us. So what's it going to take in a nutshell? We have to play better volleyball in under duress for longer periods of time and execute in big moments, which we've done a great job this season so far, and with very little lead up to the year.
Long Beach State was led by Alex Nikolov, who had 23 kills, but he did have 10 hitting errors. Well, Clark Godbold chipped in 13 kills. Spencer Olivier added 19 kills. He was probably their most effective hitter, as he hit 469 on the match. As a team, Long Beach State hit 260 compared to Penn State's 302. The blocks, like I mentioned, were in favor of Long Beach State, 12.5 to 7 as a team. And like I said, Long Beach State only got outdug by 1, but all in all for Long Beach State, they didn't have like a bad match. They just didn't have that big point to like distance them and draw them closer in that fifth set. And I'm willing to bet, and this is no knock on Penn State, I'm willing to bet that if Long Beach State had pushed that to a deuce game, Long Beach State would have had all the pressure and momentum. They would have had all the pressure on Penn State and all the momentum on their side. Just because playing at the Pyramid is just so difficult, and it's just really challenging to play on the road for a second straight week, and you're playing in a hostile environment. So I give credit to both these teams. They really performed well, and who knows, maybe we'll see these two teams face each other off again. So we'll see what happens going down the stretch. So that is going to do it for the Week 4 matchups in NCAA men's volleyball. Jumping on into the AVCA Division 1 and 2 men's coaches poll for January 31st. In terms of the top 15, 15 through 11 consists of UC Irvine at 15, Stanford at 14, UC San Diego at 13, Ohio State at 12, and UC Santa Barbara at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Ball State at 10, BYU at 9, Grand Canyon at 8, USC at 7, and Lewis at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Penn State at 5, UCLA at 4, Long Beach State at 3, Pepperdine at 2, and your number 1 team in the AVCA Division 1 men's volleyball coaches poll is Hawaii. So despite losing to Ball State, they stay atop the standings, as Ball State did defeat Hawaii in the second matchup in 5 sets. They won set 5, 15-11. But again, this is no big concern for Long Beach State. I honestly think that, not Long Beach State, Hawaii. Well, Long Beach State and Hawaii, because obviously it's tough to keep up your consistency, as, well, playing without a majority of your starters for Hawaii is really tough. For Long Beach State, playing back-to-back matches is tough, but with both of them being really talented opponents and having gotten a better feel for California, I think it's difficult and challenging. So for Long Beach, this was just a little bit of a blip on the radar. They just can't afford too many blips, especially going into conference play. But my motto is still the same as always. It's better to lose now than to lose in conference play, your conference tournament, or the NCAA tournament. So you could afford a few of these losses, but they just can't pile up to the point where it affects you going into conference play. So that is that for some NCAA men's volleyball talk. Let's jump on over into some NCAA women's volleyball side of things, as before the match between Long Beach State and Ohio State, there was actually a little bit of a meet and greet, as Long Beach State introduced its new women's volleyball coach, Tyler Hildebrand, to the good people of Long Beach State. So there was a good turnout of spectators. I think I was their only media guy, even though I wasn't the one really taking pictures or reporting this on a story. But I was there, and I was able to get a nice little interview with Tyler Hildebrand. So here's my brief interview with Tyler Hildebrand following the meet and greet press conference.
All right, Tyler, obviously being here is big and important, as you have pretty much back to your stomping grounds. How does it feel being back at the beach?
Yeah, really special to be home. We, just walking into the pyramid for the first time, it was weird. I took a little video with my iPhone. I'm like, all right, first time. Well, not the first time, but the first time. And so it feels fresh and it feels fun again. And just to be home. I mean, we're doing an outside interview, or in January, and that's something that I'm not used to where I've been. So, but yeah, really excited to get started. We're loving being home, and we're trying to do something special.
obviously being at Nebraska, you got to be with Coach John Cook. What were some memorable lessons that you learned from Coach Cook?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. How long do you have?
I have pretty much all day.
That was a long list. Coach will always be one of my greatest mentors, great friend, part of we're family, and but I learned a lot from him. Any assistant coach learns from a great coach like that. You learn a lot of things to do. You learn a couple things not to do or that you would want to do differently. But recruiting, culture, accountability, certainly poise when you go deep into the playoffs, because we went to 2 national championship games together, so we got to do the whole season. And you really learn how to handle the ups and downs of a season and handle it with poise. And it was like he's been there so many times that I really learned a lot from how to stay the course during that run. In the gym, practice plan, and it's really, I learned a lot. But, recruiting was a big one. Accountability, team culture, and kind of poise through playoffs were probably the 4 big ones.
What were some of your memorable moments that you enjoyed back at Nebraska?
Oh, winning the national championship in 17, winning the Big Ten championship in 17, doing it the same year. It's really rare that happens. That was pretty cool because we were supposed to be in a rebuilding year. And then really just I really enjoyed getting to know and learning and getting connected with the girls. So I'll remember the girls, and I'll remember all the trainings and the practices and the coffee meetings and just the relationships. And then ultimately, I think the thing that will stick with me the most is probably that run that we made at the end of last year. After we felt like a pretty poor COVID 2021-2020 season where we never really played that well, and it was kind of tough, and it was weird to play without fans. And then not a great season really the next year either, and then to make an improbable 3 or 4 match stretch to get us into a 5th set against Wisconsin. We were not really supposed to be in that match, I don't think, and those girls found a way to fight and play above their level for a long time, and we all were just sitting there watching it. It was pretty cool.
So for that matchup, or for that little interview right there with Tyler Hildebrand, I really liked meeting him. I thought he was a very well-poised person, and honestly, he had a lot of insight to his coaching philosophy, and I couldn't be more happy to meet him. And I actually have more to show you all, as I'm actually just fast-forwarding this a little bit just because there was some dead air, aka some wind / some background noise. So continuing on with the interview. So your coaching staff, what can you say about your coaching staff, and how special is your coaching staff, and what's the goal for your coaches to help you out?
Yeah, we have I feel like it's my responsibility to surround these girls with great mentors, great leaders. Obviously, we need to coach great volleyball, but I think it's more important that they have role models to look up to. Me and Nick need to be that, but it's great to have female role models in Kim and CJ, and we got kind of lucky. We have a gold medalist as our volunteer. We have a 7-year, 8-year professional in CJ, national team member, and obviously I said what I said about Nick, but I think we got a great staff, and we're really excited to get going. And the main thing about our staff is our whys are all aligned, which is we want to care about these girls as people first, and we want to win volleyball games second.
All right, and then what's your main goal when it comes to changing the culture or making this the best culture in a non-Power 5 college volleyball world?
Yeah, we want to, as I said before, we want to feel like Volleyball University, and that means we are supporting each other programmatically while we're here. We're sharing ideas and training methods and all that, and the girls get a benefit from that. But really, I think it means from a cultural standpoint, from the local support, the community support, the fan support, and really the alumni support. We want them to feel like they come here and they have mentors for life with our alumni. They have people to look up to in volleyball and in life, on both the men's side and the beach side and the women's side. And that's something that will make them feel like they're part of something bigger than just a regular college or mid-major program. And so there's that part of it. Then we want to be great learners and great people and learn how to be resilient in a day and age where I think there's a lot of pressure and social media and things like that for that we need to try to build in these girls a great compass of how to handle all that.
So that was pretty much my interview with Tyler Hildebrand. So for Tyler, he really had a lot of philosophy and he really had a lot to say. It really helps that he learned from one of the best, John Cook. And honestly, I think he's going to provide a lot of wealthy knowledge to this Long Beach State women's volleyball team. Obviously, it's been a tough little stretch in the post-Brian Gimolaro era, but I think for Long Beach State, they have a lot of promise to their team, and I think with Tyler Hildebrand and their coaching staff, it's really going to benefit them quite well. So that's that for the Tyler Hildebrand interview. Now let's jump on into the college men's volleyball matches to watch for in week number 5. Then I will send you all on your way. So the sneaky good matchups to watch for this week. Wednesday, we have number 13 UC San Diego at number 7 USC. Then on Friday, we have number 4 UCLA at number 15 UC Irvine. Then Saturday, the roles are reversed between UC Irvine and UCLA as UC Irvine travels to UCLA. Then in Austin, Texas, we have number 14 Stanford versus number 1 Hawaii in the First Point Collegiate Challenge. So that's going to be some sneaky good matchups to watch for. So we didn't have too many big-time matches to watch for, but we have a good chunk. So on Friday, we have number 2 Pepperdine at number 11 UC Santa Barbara. This is basically round 2 between the Gauchos and the Waves, as the Gauchos won the first matchup in 5 sets at Pepperdine. So to me, I think it's going to be a big-time rivalry matchup right here. This is, once again, it's a rematch of these two teams meeting in the NCAA tournament with UC Santa Barbara getting the better of the Waves. So I think this is definitely going to be a matchup to watch for. I feel it's going to have a lot of intensity and fire. And with Santa Barbara playing great as of late, I think they could pull off the win. But if you're Pepperdine, you really have to show why you're the number 2 team in the nation. If you don't win this one, you're not going to be number 2 for much longer. And Santa Barbara won't be in the double digits in terms of being ranked. They'll actually be in the top 10. So also on Friday, we have number 10 Ball State at number 9 BYU. Ball State just got the week off started on a strong note as they beat Hawaii in 5 sets. Granted, Hawaii was missing some of its top players, but it's still an impressive victory for Ball State. They're actually the only undefeated team in the nation. I could be wrong about that because there could be another under-the-radar team that's undefeated, but for right now, Ball State is undefeated. They do have to go up to Provo to take on BYU. That's going to be a challenge. It's never easy to beat BYU at BYU, so I think this is going to be a roller coaster ride, to say the least. And then my match of the week for this week, this was actually a tough one to pick. I actually wanted to pick Pepperdine UC Santa Barbara, but I have to go with this match of the week right here. Number 7, USC, coming in at 7-1, taking on number 3, Long Beach State, coming in at 5-1. So for the Beach, they're coming off of their loss to Penn State. However, this is kind of going to be a little bit of a statement match right here. Early statement match for USC and Long Beach State. The thing I definitely need to make note of for Long Beach State is that this could be a possible trap game for the Beach, as next week Long Beach State plays UCLA. So for me, I think it's going to be a tough little matchup right here, and I think honestly it's going to be, well, I wouldn't call it tough against USC, but I feel Long Beach State could have their hands full just because USC is starting to play well. I don't think that loss to Ohio State gave them any justice, just because that second set was close, and then Ohio State just rode the momentum in the third and fourth set. So I think for me, it's going to be a barn burner of a matchup between Long Beach and USC. These two teams have played close matchups with one another. There haven't really been sweeps, as USC has made it competitive, but I feel Long Beach State could come to play. We'll see what happens in this matchup. And then on Saturday, we have two noteworthy matchups. We have round 2 of number 10 Ball State at number 9 BYU. Once again, I think that's going to be a tough matchup for Ball State. This is another big test for them. They have to face a tough David Gardini player on BYU. But for me, if Ball State can play like they did tonight against I would obviously call them shorthanded, but I feel that Hawaii did have one more talented player. I think Ball State can beat BYU. BYU obviously lost half of its roster last year to graduation and whatnot, so I think for me, BYU has to come out ready to go. They cannot underestimate Ball State. So we'll see if Ball State can move into the top 10 next week if they defeat BYU at least once. And then also on Saturday, this was kind of going to be my honorable mention match of the week, but number 8 Grand Canyon at number 6 Lewis. Once again, Lewis coming off of that big victory over number 2 or then number 2 UCLA as they take on a Grand Canyon team who's kind of been a little up and down. The Lopes obviously have those 2 losses to Penn State, but other than that, they've been solid throughout most of the season. I think it's going to be a barn burner, and this is another big test for both these teams. This is basically, for Lewis's standpoint, they have to prove that the win over UCLA was not a fluke, and then for Grand Canyon, this is their time to post a big-time victory on the road against a opponent ranked higher than them. So, for me, I think this is going to be a big barn burner of a match. Again, I was going to have that as match of the week, but I could not resist putting USC versus Long Beach State, especially since both of those two teams are combined 12-2, whereas Grand Canyon and Lewis are a combined 10-4. So I obviously have to give the slight edge to the Trojans in the Beach. But I still got respect for the Lopes and the Flyers. Other than that, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Without any further delay, let's drop that beat, as I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you're listening live, I appreciate you. If you're listening on the playback, I appreciate you. If you're listening at any point in the world, I appreciate you. Big shout to the chat room for tuning in. Gina G popping in. She says it's been a crazy day for her, but she says my show has been dope as always. She had to step out to help her son with her homework, but that is alright. Thank you for tuning in, Gina. Thank you to Mike Pat for tuning in. Thank you to Adam Carnick for tuning in. Thank you to Larry B for popping in. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourselves a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action. Keep an eye out for some of these sneaky good matchups. Also keep an eye out for the 3-2-2A men's volleyball season that just got underway last week, as we got ourselves quite a few barn burner matchups right there. Now we'll see you probably later on in the week for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So I'll just see you all on the other side. Peace!